Okay, welcome to the Unapologetic Chauvinist. This is Justice, your host. This came out about a week ago, so I meant to talk about this, but I'm just getting back into making videos regularly. Again, I'm a very busy person, but this issue shows us that this agenda with LGBT cannot be dissented. There cannot be disagreement, even from children. We're talking about a 10-year-old child who was suspended for voicing her opinion. It's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. You don't have to agree with someone, and your disagreement should not be equated to being racist or homophobic, should I say. And it's the same thing with the race issue too. If you disagree with certain groups and culturally, and then it's racist. No. Again, you have your right to disagree. And then this child was accused of saying something that she denies. And so it's like, he said, she said, who do you believe? Do you believe the teacher and staff at the school, or you believe the child? There's no evidence to suggest that the child said what is being alleged. But let's listen to the young lady Casey speak for herself.
I only learned what homophobic means the other day, and it means that you don't like LGBT people. So I was confused when she said that I was being very homophobic. I'm not homophobic. I'm just against the point of putting it in schools and teaching it to children.
And look, she has that right to be against them putting it in schools. I'm against them putting it in schools the same way I would be against any other practice that it's something that adults should be determining for themselves and determining what and when they teach these concepts to their children. What is education for? What is the limit of education? What should you have strangers telling your children? You have to vet these schools. Parents have to be responsible enough to vet these schools. Don't send your children to these schools without vetting them. Because this is what you'll get. You'll get your child suspended unjustly for things you never agreed with. But when you go register your child for a school, you should be asking for the curriculums and the programs and the pamphlets that they're going to be operating on or under. Okay?
I think that they're trying to confuse children into saying, what are you? Because before anybody knew what LGBT meant, everybody knew what gender they were. But now people are confused and they're saying that they're bisexual and trans because they're confused, and people are trying to say it's okay. But before all of this happened, they were completely confident of who they were, but now they're not. My mom isn't telling me to say this. It's completely myself, because my mom's not the one that's going to school to see this happening. I am. So this is my opinion on what I'm saying to stop LGBT from lessons from happening in school, because it's really affecting other kids. And even though you might not think that it's affecting other kids, it is, because now they are losing confidence in themselves and looking at themselves and thinking, why am I this person? Why can't I be someone else?
I thought the teacher said this is actually doing good for the kids. It's bringing them knowledge and to be more happy with themselves. Are you saying that this is doing the opposite?
Yes, I'm saying that teachers and other people that are teaching this to young kids are completely wrong, because they're saying that it's doing children and people good, but it's not. Because before all this happened, people knew who they were, and they knew who they're proud of, and they knew their self. But since this came out and into school, children are now facing the choice of what gender they are by the age of 4. Some people by the age of 4 are saying that I don't want to be a girl anymore, or I don't want to be a boy anymore. That's because schools or nurseries are trying to say to children that it's okay to become something else that you're not.
So again, the young lady's points are poignant. Why are we discussing transgenderism with 4-year-olds, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds without the consent of the parents? Is the biggest thing. How do you choose to put information, sexual information, into a child without the consent of the parent? In essence, this is pedophilia without saying it. That's what you're doing. You're sexualizing children, and that's pedophilia. You have no business talking to someone else's child about sexual matters, especially without the consent. And even with the consent, parents have to be wise enough that there are just certain things that you don't want strangers discussing with your children. And most of us don't know our children's teachers well enough to say, I'm comfortable with you talking about sexual topics. So, God bless this little girl for having the strength of character to say things that most adults won't say. Some of us just scurry and be quiet. And I have to admit, personally, I've been in activist circles where I kept my viewpoint quiet and didn't talk about it. So again, God bless this brave little girl who was suspended for 5 days. I want to take it a little further and read this article. So I posted this article online about it from lifesitenews.com. The headline reads, 10-year-old girl suspended for asking to be exempted from LGBT school lesson. I'm going to scroll down here. And we looked at the video already. Let's read some of this. It says a 10-year-old who was suspended from school for a week after asking her teacher permission to be excused from participating in a, quote, Pride Month, end quote, LGBT lesson has gone on the record to explain the real dangers of the invasion of LGBT ideology in her school. Why does a child have to explain the real dangers? Where are the adults who disagree with this ideology of hypersexualizing young people? Where are they speaking up? Again, I want to convict you. If you disagree, speak up. Don't let them silence you. You don't have to agree with their viewpoints. Okay? You don't have to. You have the right to disagree. Continuing on. Quote, before anybody knew what LGBT meant, everybody knew what gender they were, end quote, explained Casey, who along with her classmate Pharrell was suspended from the Havers Farmer Primary School located in Croydon, I'm guessing that's how you pronounce that, South London. Okay, moving on, quote, but now people are confused, end quote, continued the 10-year-old. Okay, so she's saying they're confused. I'm going to keep going. I'm trying to skip through this, so forgive me if I chop and screw this because I got some other things that I have some other things I want to discuss. She says before this happened, they were completely confident in who they were, but now they're not. This is the case when you see the promotion of kids wearing drag, okay, and wearing short clothing, sexually provocative clothing, okay? I'm trying to get to the part where the child was accused of saying inappropriate things. On June 20th, Pharrell, sitting next to his friend Casey in class, asked his Year 5 class teacher, quote, sir, please may I not take part in this lesson, end quote, when the teacher handed out LGBT material for coloring. The teacher refused permission, saying that the LGBT lesson was a part of the curriculum. So, again, he has to be excused. If this is true, the way it's presented, the young man asked to be excused, he should have been able to be excused. He wasn't disrespectful, according to the source, of course. Now, I was told this is an opinion piece, and obviously, but the best we can do before proving otherwise is take someone's word for it. That's why it's innocent until proven guilty. You don't believe the accuser. You believe the person being accused first until proven otherwise. Okay. It's like the scripture says, out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses may a thing be established. So until there are extra witnesses to corroborate a story, the person being accused is considered innocent until enough witnesses that are credible come forth. Then the young man goes on to say, let me see, where is it? It says, the teacher asked the 2 children, quote, do you want them to die? We said no, Pharrell replied. If, however, they went back to their countries, they would be punished for being gay, Pharrell told the teacher. Okay, and then the teacher asked Pharrell where he was from. Pharrell said he was of African Jamaican heritage, and because there, quote, everybody is Christian and Catholic, so they don't accept LGBT, end quote. And when you read this, the teacher says, how dare you, your disappointment to the school? Because the young man stated a fact. In certain countries, this type of ideology, lifestyle, behavior is not accepted. He stated a fact. It's not hate speech to state a fact. Okay? Now, again, I posted this on Facebook, and I'm going to read some comments from my Facebook, and for the sake of not exposing anyone's name, I'm not going to show that in this video, but I will read some of these comments, okay? The first dissenter told me to read the article, not the headline. Okay, and then said, so I respond, I said, I read it again, looking for the hate speech, okay, because it was claimed that there was hate speech in there. I didn't find it. That's probably because you and I have different definitions of hate speech, which is why I asked you for your definition. I originally asked this individual their definition of hate speech. Okay, and then so this person quotes the article, says, quote, London, who banned the children from the school for 5 days for alleged anti-LGBT comments, end quote. It's also a biased article written by a religious website hoping to create clicks, not conversation. Hate speech is speech that is used to cause, demean, or promote hate to others based on your beliefs. Your beliefs do not justify hate towards LGBT. I then reply and say, what did the child say that fits this definition? I get no response. So then another person jumps in. Again, I get no response because the child didn't say anything that was hate speech. As you can see here, it says, how dare you say that you want to kill LGBT people? And Casey replied, I didn't say kill. Okay, and the Pappas then shouted at her and said, yes, you did, and don't lie. And so sometimes what happens is you have accusations made that are absurd just to make someone look guilty of hate speech. But we can't prove any either way because we weren't present that the child said this or didn't. All we know is that the staff member claimed she did and she claimed she didn't. Okay? And again, innocent but until proven guilty. Out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall a thing be established. Point blank, period. Therefore, the child should be presumed innocent until otherwise proven. Continuing on the comments from my Facebook. So a woman commented and said this: if someone said that they wish someone would kill the LGBT in the community, that is the definition of hate speech. However, the article doesn't confirm that report. Exactly my point. Exactly my point. Excuse me. However, again, the article doesn't confirm that report. This is very much an opinion piece and written to create additional ugliness in our communities and our country. Please rise above it. We're all good people. So now I'm assuming from that comment that she subscribed to LGBT philosophy and ideology. And so, you know, I was trying to understand, we're all good people, so inclusive. Okay. Mind you, this happened, 5 days ago. So that's when I posted this. I responded, okay, with this comment. I agree that it is an opinion piece. That's an obvious point. What I was pointing out was how a child cannot express dissent to an agenda she didn't agree with. If this is supposed to be the land of the free, the child and everyone else has the right to disagree with your ideology, your science, your religion, your culture, etc. Mere disagreement does not mean hate speech. Instead of engaging in a dialogue, it appears that the child was told her opinion is not credible or valid. As a consequence, the child tried to clarify her opinion with words that are considered hate speech. Again, instead of challenging the child with words, a civil debate, the child was ostracized and removed from school. The very actions of the school's administration proves that the child could not have her own opinion, asked to abstain from things she doesn't agree with, or defend her position in an inclusive, respectful forum. In addition, as an adult, I know how difficult it is to articulate my own views. So does anyone expect a child to use academic language to express disagreement? Okay, this is my very, very strong point. We're talking about a 10-year-old child. A child will express disagreement in a way that you may find disrespectful, but that's because the young person doesn't have the language, the tact, or the sophistication to communicate that idea in a way that isn't deliberately harmful. The child is not being deliberately harmful, is my point. I go on to say, it is irrational to hold a child to such a standard while not giving her the space to speak freely. So if you're going to shut the child down and then expect the child to speak in a positive way, to articulate her point, it's irrational. It's not logical at all. I go on to say, but when it comes to LGBT, dissent is not tolerated, not even from children. And that was my point when I posted the article. I said dissent will not be tolerated in terms of this situation. Okay. The woman responded to me to say, free speech is one thing, but if she called for killing of LGBT plus American citizens, as the article stated, that is hate speech. So one, this person didn't really read the article because it's in London. Okay. Two, again, there was the accusation of calling for killing. It's not corroborated. She goes on to say, should she be allowed her opinion? Of course. Should she be allowed to say she thinks citizens should die due to their sexual orientation among students who may have those orientations? Absolutely not. Suspension was the wrong route. However, perhaps a school counselor meeting would have been a more reasonable choice to explain she has a right to her opinions, but stating individuals should die because of sex orientation, race, religion, etc. in a public school setting is wrong and illegal. And I'm gonna say that the young lady, in my opinion, doesn't belong in that public school, flat out. Okay, I think people should homeschool their children as much as possible. Because again, if you're not going to do the due diligence to find out what they're teaching your child, and if it's against your values and your morals and your principles, then you should be teaching them yourself. Do not expect them to do what you won't do for your own children. Okay? Do not expect them to do that. Counselors, for the most part, are trained in the brainwashing techniques of these leftist ideologies. So I'm in disagreement with that wholeheartedly about sending her to a counselor. I replied to her saying, the article says the child was accused of saying they should die. An accusation is not a fact. Why are you so quick to believe that believe the teacher over the students? I have looked at other sources on this event and none support the claim that the students stated they wanted LGBT people to die. The young male student stated a fact about his country which should not be misconstrued as hate speech. And then I go on to post another link from another source to, to prove the point. It's just ridiculous, right? So another thread of comment, and I should really keep this video short. I know I go on a little bit. But I want you to see the way people are thinking on the left. And I hate to use that term, but it's like you can't have your own opinion, your own ideology. As long as you're not calling for harm on other people, you don't have to agree with what they believe. That's your right. As a human being, created in the image of God, that's my position. But then also as an American citizen, you have that right. Okay, this particular event happened in London. I'm talking to people over Facebook who are in America, who are American citizens, okay, who think the same way. So this stuff is coming here, and I'm sure I can find the articles of young people suspended in America for allegedly anti-LGBT comments. Anyway, I'm gonna read the comment from this guy. There's another comment. When I say about dissent being not being tolerated, he says, but if a white person asked to be excused from Black History Month, you would be okay with that? Hate is hate is hate. Is his comment. So very shallow, unthoughtful comment. And again, I'm not saying that to be disrespectful to this individual. I'm saying this so that you understand the way some of these people, not all of them, the way some of these folks who subscribe to this ideology think. It's not, we can't have a rational debate. It's the name calling. Let's have a rational debate. So I reply like this. Here's what I reply. I am opposed to limiting the history of Black, and that's in quote, Americans to 1 month. So your point is mute to me. It makes no sense to avoid the history of people who helped to build this nation until February. Despite the previous point, no one should be forced to learn anything. That includes the viewpoint/ideologies of others. The right to abstain is a pillar of freedom, and disagreement does not equal hate. So I could care less if you say, I don't want to learn about Black History Month. I don't think there should be a Black History Month. I think the history should be incorporated throughout the entire social studies unit, U.S. government, what have you, whatever history course you're taking at that particular time. That is my viewpoint. You don't have to agree with that. I'm entitled to that belief. So abstention, a white person, quote unquote, abstaining, wanting to abstain from that is irrelevant because it's a part of the whole history. And there's a difference in my mind between color of the skin and sexual preference. I don't subscribe to the philosophy of orientation. Just me. Preference. Okay? Anyway, Here's his reply. Again, same comment. Hate is hate is hate. See how shallow that comment is. She can refuse, but the school can also stand up for the rights of people to have their history and issues and voice taught too. Now, I'm sorry, I don't agree that LGBT are a people. Because people usually have to do with ethnicity, bloodline, heritage. This is not that. This is a group of unrelated people who subscribe to the same philosophy. You can't call them a people. Historically, they wouldn't be called a people. That is not even logical. He goes on to say, your hate is hate. Again, repeating this mantra as if it's going to sink in my mind that I'm spewing hate, but I'm not. Hiding behind so-called freedom sounds very MAGA to me. Be better. Good knowing you. So I'm accused of being a Trump supporter. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. You can support whoever you want. As I've said in previous videos, no dog in the race. I'm on the side of the Lord. Point blank period. Okay? Do I want America to be great? Absolutely. Does America have a sordid past and mistakes? Absolutely. Am I going to be fixated on that? Absolutely not. Not my concern. The crimes of the past. I'm looking at the future. That's just my point of view. Okay? He goes on to say, also, you're right, Black History is not a month, nor should Pride only be limited to a month. But my point is still valid. Your religious beliefs don't justify hate. And I want to point out the fact that LGBT, their Pride Month is, notice how people subscribe to this. They get a longer month than Black people, as if they have a greater contribution to American society. Now, that some people may argue that's apples and oranges, but my opinion is, why do you think that is? My question, is why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Because remember, the LGBT movement has ridden off the coattails of the civil rights movement, and I have my opinions about that, but that's another video. Let me keep going. I respond, I am genuinely trying to understand why you're calling an opinion hate. Please explain to me how not agreeing with LGBT ideology is hate. Of course, at that point, he stopped responding because he couldn't convince me and couldn't explain how having your opinion is hate, and wanted to push it all on religion. Okay? Just like you have the right to be an atheist and say bad things about the Bible and the characters in the Bible and to doubt the things that are written in there. No one calls that hate. How come we can't get a fair shake, right? But dissent is not tolerated in the sense of LGBT, period. It's not, at this point, it's not, dissent is not tolerated, okay? I continue, okay? No, now a young lady jumps in, okay? Let me read her comment briefly. I'm going to try to wrap this up as fast as I can. She says, by that logic, evolution should be excluded in most of the South, as well as Civil War studies, etc., etc. While I believe students should have a voice in their curriculum choices, learning about the suffering and differences of others, need a drink of water. Learning about the suffering and differences of others is how we learn to be unafraid of different cultures and use history to avoid making the same mistakes repeatedly. All I'm saying is that I feel this in this country, in this time period, is a particularly slippery slope. It scares me. I write in response, that's a clear difference between there's a clear difference between objective study, okay, and what is taking place in schools today. I am still working directly in schools, and I observe this fact with my own eyes. I've been teaching math for quite some time, okay, so I know what I'm talking about. The truth is, there is an agenda that wants certain ideologies taught to the next generation and the exclusion of opposing ideologies. If you really believe what you posted, you would support all viewpoints being taught to the young and allowing them to decide what they agree with. This is freedom. Utilizing your example of evolution, it is intolerant to exclude the teaching of intelligent design as a comparative study. But intelligent design is excluded because it does not fit the agenda. So again, because if you teach intelligent design, then you have to talk about a creator of some kind, and then you have to talk about what people believe that creator's ideologies and rules are, and that is opposite of LGBT ideology, and that's the point. And so you have to get rid of these things in order to promote this agenda. And that's what I'm tackling with this young lady who replied to me. I go on to say, as far as the Civil War, the writings of Southerners aren't discussed because it doesn't fit the agenda. Okay? People don't want to talk about what the Southerners say the reason for the Civil War were. That's not really discussed. And as it's commonly said, history is written by the victors, right? So the North wrote the history as far as we know it now. There are some sources from the South, but it's not studied. If you study, and as a person who went to school for government and public policy, you study some of these things, these constitutional questions of states' rights, you'll understand that there was some credibility to the South's position. And I say that as a free thinker. You can't tell me what to believe and think. Anyway, I go on to say, the slippery slope is that opposing views will continue not to be taught to the youth in the name of quote-unquote tolerance. Freedom is the freedom to form my own opinion, not have it formed for me. Okay? What scares me is ready-made propaganda claiming to be education. Okay? Now, I just realized she made another comment that I didn't quite catch. I can't read it because I didn't really catch. Well, I could read it, but it's probably not necessary. The point is that I'm trying to make is that dissent won't be tolerated. This young lady in England was suspended along with her her peer, another student, for having a different opinion. And it's going to come here. It's going to get worse. Dissent as much as you can. You don't have to agree. What you shouldn't do, okay, is be vicious and nasty about your disagreement. You have the right to disagree. Don't let them silence you and silence your disagreement. Dissent. God bless and good day.